December 15, 1964, Bien Hoa Air Base, South Vietnam. A modified C-47 banks into a left-hand circle above a tree line, where Viet Cong mortarmen crouch in darkness. In the cargo bay, the loadmaster thumbs a flare lanyard. The interphone crackles. Left 5, hold. 3 7.62mm miniguns bolted to the left cargo door open fire, and tracers spiral downward in a glowing red corkscrew. Tracer mixed belts paint a column from wing to jungle floor. The night, for a century the guerrilla's sanctuary, suddenly belongs to someone else. By 1964, American advisors and South Vietnamese forces accept a grim axiom. After sunset, the countryside belongs to the Viet Cong. Outposts hunker behind sandbags, convoys park until dawn, and the insurgents move supplies, lay ambushes, and probe defenses with impunity. Commanders believe air support ends when the sun drops, because fighters and bombers need to see their targets. Night is the enemy's domain. Captain Ron Terry, a USAF fighter pilot at Eglin Air Proving Ground Center in Florida, revives a side-firing idea after reading a 1962 piece on lateral weapons and recalling World War II pylon turns. He mounts 3 General Electric GAU-2 divided by A miniguns on the left side of a C-47, tying their fire into one beaten zone. In the turn, the pilot aims the whole airplane. At an orbit of roughly 2,500 to 3,000 feet, bank angle and airspeed keep the sightline welded to a single point. 3 guns, 1 solution. A combined rate near 6,000 rounds per minute that can hold a fixed spot on the ground. Terry's crew adds wing-mounted illumination flares, so night looks like dusk beneath the orbit. The Air Force greenlights Project Gunship in late 1964 and sends a small batch of converted transports to Bien Hoa within weeks. By December 1964, the first side-firing trials over hamlets near Trang Bang prove the concept. Persistent, precise fire after dark, at a fraction of jet cost, and with hours of loiter instead of minutes. The idea isn't a new weapon so much as a new geometry, an old cargo plane that can park its fire over a target and make night attacks predictable, punishable, and brief. On the night of December 23, 1964, a Viet Cong battalion surrounds a South Vietnamese army outpost near Trang Bang, Tay Ninh province, and opens fire with mortars and automatic weapons. The garrison radios for help, and an FC-47 gunship scrambles from Bien Hoa, 40 miles southeast. About 14 minutes later, Captain Ron Terry's crew arrives overhead, drops a string of flares, and begins a left-hand orbit. We could see muzzle flashes all around the perimeter. They had the place nearly overrun. Terry aligns the wing with the tree line south of the compound and opens fire with all 3 miniguns. 6,000 rounds per minute pour into a 50-meter zone, one burst effectively saturating the target area with impacts. The tracer stream spirals into the jungle, and the VC fire stops. Ground controllers report the attackers scatter, dragging bodies into the darkness. The gunship orbits for another 90 minutes, dropping flares every few minutes, and firing short bursts at movement detected by the loadmaster using handheld binoculars. By dawn, the outpost still stands, and AR-VN patrols count 32 enemy dead in the wire. Over the next 6 months, the Air Force deploys the 4th Air Commando Squadron with 20 AC-47 gunships to bases across South Vietnam, Tan Son, Nut, Da Nang, Pleiku, Binh Thuy. Each province requests them nightly. Commanders plan operations assuming gunship top cover. In June 1965, during the siege of Dong Xoai Special Forces Camp in Phuoc Long Province, a C-47 seconds fly continuous relay sorties, one aircraft orbiting overhead while another refuels. Special Forces Captain Paul Leahy radios that without the gunships, the camp would have fallen in the first 24 hours. The siege lasts 3 days. The camp holds not just firepower, but presents the knowledge that an attacker will be illuminated and, shredded, reverses the psychological balance. In the Central Highlands during 1966, a C-47 seconds provide night defense for isolated outposts manned by civilian irregular defense group soldiers and U.S. Army Special Forces A teams. These camps, and K. Play me Dak. To sit along infiltration routes from Laos and Cambodia, targets for North Vietnamese Army regiments moving south. Before the gunships, commanders abandon perimeter patrols after dark and accept that probing attacks will test defenses every few nights. We'd get a call, launch in under 10 minutes, be on station in another 5. Once they heard our engines and saw the first flare, the shooting usually stopped. On March 9, 1966, near Pleiku, an AC-47 responds to a fire mission at a CIDG camp under assault by an estimated reinforced company. The crew drops 28 flares during a 4-hour orbit, expending 18,000 rounds of 7.62mm ammunition in bursts timed to enemy movements spotted by ground tracers. Cordite rides the slipstream into the bay. The pilot trims a half-degree to keep the sightline welded to the tree line. The pilot holds the pylon turn so steady that the tracer stream hangs like a spoke from sky to earth. It looked like a red fire hose pouring out of the sky. When it stopped, nothing moved out there. After-action reports credit the gunship with breaking the attack and inflicting 40 confirmed casualties. The camp suffers 2 wounded. Intelligence officers note a pattern. VC and NVA units begin attacks before gunships arrive, then withdraw the moment flares ignite overhead. By mid-1966, enemy commanders avoid large-scale night assaults unless they confirm a C-47 seconds are grounded by weather. The MACV J2 night operations brief in February 1967 documents about a 70% reduction in successful nighttime attacks on defended positions in areas with regular AC-47 coverage compared to 1964 figures. Outposts that once required battalion-sized relief forces now hold with company strength and a single gunship overhead. Not a new weapon, but a new clock, 24-hour defense where there was only daylight. The Mekong Delta in 4 Corps, a patchwork of canals, rice paddies and hamlets, gives the Viet Cong mobility and concealment unmatched in Vietnam. Regional forces and popular forces. South Vietnamese militias defend villages with small posts that the VC raid for weapons and to demonstrate government impotence. Before 1966, these outposts rarely survive coordinated night attacks. A C-47 seconds operating from Bin Thuy Air Base changed the calculus. Detachment 4 of the 4th Air Commando Squadron flies an average of 6 sorties per night, covering hamlets across 3 provinces. Before the gunships, we would lose a post every week. After, the Viet Cong stop attacking unless they know the planes cannot fly. On the night of July 14, 1966, an AC-47 responds to a distress call from a hamlet near Vinh Long. The crew arrives to find tracers crisscrossing the village centre and structures burning. The gunship drops flares, illuminating attackers in black pajamas moving through alleys. The aircraft commander begins a pylon turn, and the tracer stream walks through the hamlet edge where the VC have concentrated. In 3 passes, totaling 90 seconds of fire, the crew expends 4,500 rounds. The militia radios that the attackers flee south toward a canal. The gunship shifts fire and cuts off the retreat. Sweeps the next morning recover 22 bodies and 6 abandoned weapons. Captured documents and prisoner interrogations reveal that Viet Cong commanders call AC-47 fire dragon fire, or fire from the sky that does not stop. One VC political officer writes in a diary recovered near Can Tho in early 1967. We cannot attack when the planes circle. The fire is everywhere at once. Tactical adjustments follow. VC units begin attacks only during monsoon storms that ground aircraft, or they employ anti-aircraft guns to force gunships above effective firing altitude. These adaptations confirm what commanders already know. The enemy no longer controls the night, not just suppression, but deterrence attacks that never happen because the cost becomes unbearable. By 1967, AC-47 missions expand beyond outpost defense to convoy, escort, search and rescue top cover, and armed reconnaissance over known infiltration routes. Pilots develop techniques for night interdiction, flying without lights along canals and trails, watching for cooking fires or movement, then dropping a flare and opening fire if the target appears military. Near Cantho in January 1967, an AC-47 spots sampans moving in formation along a canal at 0200 hours. The crew drops a flare, confirms no civilian markings, and fires a 3-second burst that sinks 4 boats. Ground patrols recover weapons and ammunition crates the next morning. The missions carry risk. VC and NVA units position anti-aircraft machine guns near known targets, waiting for gunships to orbit predictably. On February 8, 1967, an AC-47 over Quang Ngai province takes heavy fire during a support mission, and a round punctures the fuel tank. The crew limps back to Da Nang, the pilot holding the pylon turn for another 20 minutes to suppress enemy fire before departing. 5 crewmen receive Purple Hearts. The plane flies again within a week. Despite losses, about 7 AC-47 seconds shot down between 1965 and 1969, the demand never slackens. MACV requests double the number of gunships. The Air Force cannot build them fast enough. By mid-1967, Douglas aircraft and Air Force depots convert additional C-47 transports, eventually fielding about 53 AC-47 seconds in Southeast Asia. The Tet Offensive in January 1968 proves the platform's value under maximum stress. A C-47 seconds fly continuous missions over Saigon's outskirts and provincial capitals, breaking ambushes, covering withdrawals, and defending fire bases. At Tan Son Nhut Air Base on the night of January 31, gunships orbit for 7 hours, firing on VC sappers trying to breach the perimeter. The tracer stream becomes a fixture in the night sky over every major battle. Intelligence summaries note that enemy forces avoid contact when gunships orbit, even when ground forces are numerically inferior. Not invincibility, but dominance, the night transformed from enemy advantage into American strength. 3 years after the first trials at Bien Hoa, the AC-47 Spooky gunship becomes the most requested air asset in South Vietnam. The platform that began as an improvisation, an old transport with guns bolted in the door, rewrites the rules of night combat. The AC-47's impact extends beyond the bullets and flares. It alters how ground commanders plan operations and how the enemy structures attacks. In 1964, advisors tell newly arrived units to dig in before dark and avoid movement until sunrise. By 1967, battalions patrol after nightfall, knowing a gunship can reach them in minutes if contact develops. The platform also forces technological evolution. The Air Force recognizes the C-47 airframe's limitations, slow speed, short range, light payload, and begins development of the AC-130 gunship in 1967. The AC-130 carries 20mm Vulcan cannons, 40mm Bofors guns, and eventually a 105mm howitzer, multiplying firepower tenfold. But the AC-47 remains in service because it fills a niche, cheap, plentiful, easy to maintain, and effective for the majority of close support missions. Captured enemy documents provide the clearest measure of success. A Viet Cong directive from Military Region 3 inches late 1967 instructs battalion commanders to avoid attacks on defended positions when American gunships are overhead or weather permits their flight. Another document, recovered near the Cambodian border in 1968, orders sappers to wait for clouds or storms before attempting penetration of enemy installations. Enemy-initiated attacks on outposts during periods of AC-47 availability dropped 68% compared to pre-gunship baseline. The human cost tells another story. Between 1965 and 1969, AC-47 crews fly over 46,000 combat sorties, expend about 97 million rounds of ammunition, and respond to more than 3,900 troops in contact emergencies. The Air Force credits gunships with saving approximately 3,900 friendly personnel who would have been overrun without fire support. 21 crewmen die in combat or operational accidents, Their names are engraved on memorials at Hurlburt Field, Florida. The psychological dimension matters as much as the physical. South Vietnamese soldiers and American advisors describe a morale shift when they hear the drone of the C-47's twin radial engines and see the first flare blossom overhead. The tracer stream becomes a symbol proof that help arrives, that the night no longer belongs solely to the enemy. Conversely, Viet Cong and NVA troops learn to fear the sound. Prisoner interrogations consistently reference the dragon or the fire that circles. They say the plane sees everything, and the fire comes from all directions, there is no hiding. The AC-47 does not win the Vietnam War, no single weapon system does, but it reclaims a dimension of the battlefield that military orthodoxy had ceded. Before December 1964, night defense means static positions and reactive firefights. After, it means offensive capability patrols, ambushes, and rapid response enabled by overhead fire support. The innovation spreads beyond Vietnam. Gunship tactics influence close air support doctrine for decades, leading directly to the AC-130 Spectre, and modern gunship variants still flying in Afghanistan and Iraq. The principle, a slow-moving platform with side-firing weapons, sensors, and loiter time, becomes a cornerstone of counterinsurgency air power. On a spring night in 1968, an AC-47 orbits over a district town in the Mekong Delta, flares drifting on parachutes, tracers stitching the darkness. Below, a South Vietnamese militia holds its perimeter. Once a liability, becomes an asset. The last AC-47 gunship departs South Vietnam in December 1969, replaced by the more capable AC-130 and the AC-119 gunships that carry forward the mission. By then, the concept has matured into doctrine, persistent overhead fire support as a standard element of counterinsurgency operations. The Vietnam People's Air Force captures several AC-47 seconds after the fall of Saigon in 1975, but never operates them. The specialized training and maintenance prove too complex. In the United States, surviving AC-47 seconds return to transport duty or retire to museums. One airframe, tail number 43-48579, the original Project Gunship prototype, flown by Captain Ron Terry in December 1964, resides at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. Its left side still shows the 3 rectangular gun ports cut into the fuselage, empty now, but preserving the geometry that changed night combat. Veterans of the 4th Air Commando Squadron and its successor units gather every few years, and the stories repeat. The orbits, the flares, the side fire stitching, the dark. They remember the radio calls, spooky on station, and the silence that followed. Own the night. Own the fight. One side-firing C-47 proved that dominance after dark isn't about technology. It's about geometry, persistence, and the will to deny sanctuary. The gunship didn't just defend positions. It reclaimed an entire dimension of war.